So I'll cut to the chase. I caught my wife cheating. With her cousin. I'm at a point in my life where I'm supposed to be making decisions for myself. But my family still insists on making them for me, especially as regards to marriage. For them, the person that I was going to get married to was not as important as when I was going to get married. And if you know my story, you would understand the reason why it's as though they behave irrationally towards me. I come from a family of 4. It was my parents, my junior brother, and myself. My little brother was a graduate of electrical engineering, while I took on the same career path as my parents, which is law. My junior brother is currently married with 2 children, and I think that it's probably the only reason why my parents think he's more mature than I am. They practically act like I do not know my right from my left, simply because I'm not married. My singleness is not really my fault. You could blame it on my personality. I'm an introvert who loves staying on his own lanes. And the result of this is the fact that I'm currently a 31-year-old virgin who has a thriving career and still lives with his parents. My parents have actually done what they could do and said that all they could say, but my marital status still reads single. They would often host a party every now and then where their rich friends would allow to come with attendance. Behind every reason they gave why the party was organized, and I always knew that changing, or rather upgrading my marital status was their goal. They wanted me to meet with daughters of their colleagues, if perhaps something good could come out of it. Well, nothing ever did. What's up, guys? Mr. Edito here. So this is a very interesting story. It's in a diary format, so there's multiple small updates. The next update did not come out for 3 months when OP writes this. Hey guys, I've recently became the owner of a brand SUV worth a lot of money. And the sweetest part of it all is I've never spent a dime of my own money. The bill was covered by my little brother. I'd gathered my family 3 weeks ago to inform them I was going to get married. And while my brother laughed at what he called a joke, my parents insisted that they were not really going to fall for my prank. I understand their reasons for reaching the way that they did because, in all honesty, I never really thought that a day would come when I would actually have people gather just to witness my wedding. It's still a wonder how I managed to propose to my wife-to-be. My little brother, who happens to be married though still a womanizer, made a promise that he was going to gift me an SUV before my wedding day if I could introduce my fiancé to the family, and I did. I cannot really describe the look of my parents' face when I introduced my woman to them. It was a mixture of both pride and surprise. They were proud because I finally gathered enough courage to propose to a lady, and they were surprised because the lady was Emma, the daughter of a popular wealthy man. Emma had gone to the same law school which I did, but she was my junior in class and age. She was 30, and just like me, her parents had marital expectations from her. They were constantly on her back, pushing her to get married, but they remained disappointed at the fact that despite the eligible suitors that came her way, she turned them all down. Emma and I crossed paths, and in my usual fashion, I wasn't really interested in her, and my attitude should have given her the clue to let me be. But for some reason, she just pressed on. We began seeing frequently, and before you know it, I got used to having her around me. I proposed to her after dating, and it was as though she was anticipating it. She readily said yes. To cut the long story semi-short, my junior brother kept his promise. I got my SUV last week, and my parents are already running about in my preparations for the wedding. Update number 2, 10 months later. So, it's been about 10 months since my last post, and my status has been upgraded. I'm not just happily married, I'm equally a proud father of a bouncing baby boy. Everything has been happening so fast that I could barely make out time to write. My wedding was like no other that I've ever seen, and I could say that I married the best woman on the planet. Emma was good to a fault. I'm greatly indebted to my parents for the preparations and all they went through to make a wedding a success. Well, they badly wanted to make it a success. They could barely wait for the priest to join Emma and I, as they were scared that I would back out of it the last minute. Honestly speaking, I could have. For the introvert who's shy, I can say that though I do love my wife, I'm not so willing to relive that wedding ceremony experience. I mean, in the presence of people who had gathered in the masses, I was asked to kiss my wife Emma. It should not be a big deal, of course. After all, she had been pronounced my wife, but with the crowd gazing intently at me, I swear that I could have given anything to disappear on the spot. The ceremony was finally over, and Emma and I were both carried off to a 5-star hotel that had been reserved for us, courtesy of my brother. My wedding night was more awkward than the ceremony that took place during the day. I knew that as a couple we were supposed to make love, but it was my first time, and I didn't know what to do. It was rather embarrassing as I struggled to perform. Emma was understanding. She wasn't new to it, and she guided me on what to do like a teacher. My brother called very early the next morning with the claim that he wanted to find out how we were doing, but I knew my brother too well. He wanted to find out how I'd done last night. I repeatedly told him over the years that my virginity was for my wedding night, and he teased me saying that I was going to score really low, unlike my college days where I scored really high in my grades. I never told him, though, that his prediction was actually correct all along. I refused to give him the satisfaction of letting him know that I was clueless about what to do on my wedding night. Things have since changed in the bedroom, though. Ever since my first bout with it, I've given my wife little rest, and I just keep getting better and better by the day. I consider myself an expert. I'd brought my parents joy by getting married, but they began calling with the expectation to hear that my wife was pregnant. Well, their expectation was soon met. 2 weeks after my wedding, my wife had become pregnant with our son. My brother called me a sharpshooter, and I guess it meant that I was man enough. At exactly 9 months, my wife gave birth to our son. He just seemed to add a new meaning to my life, and I love my family to bits. It's funny when I look back how that little introvert like me, who had always desired to be on his own, now looks forward to every available moment that I could spend with my wife and child. Marriage and family is indeed beautiful. One thing I'm certain of is this. If my sons grow up to be an introvert, I'll fight to change him so he doesn't miss out on the joy that comes from owning your own family. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. So the next update is very unique. It didn't come out for 9 whole years. That's right, you heard me correctly. 9 years is how long it took OP to post this update on the account. It's a short one, but hey, here it is. Oh, how time flies. 9 years has passed since Emma and I got married, and though it had been our custom to always go on vacation during each wedding anniversary, we found ourselves this year attending a funeral, rather. We were to visit the Maldives on a 1-week vacation with our son when we got a call that my mother-in-law, Emma's mom, had passed away from a heart attack. My wife and our son traveled down to my in-laws' place to bury my wife's mother. It was all a big affair that was even streamed live by the media. The whole extended family was around, and after the burial, everyone took out time to know each other. It was at that point that my wife introduced me to Kyle, her long-distant cousin, who she hadn't seen in years. She really spoke highly of him having her back when they were growing up. I got interested in knowing him better because of the way that my wife had spoken so highly of him. Kyle was 2 years my junior, and he wasn't married. What I found interesting was that he was not even interested in marriage too, like I initially was. Though, he was not an introvert at all. In fact, Kyle was like my little brother. He easily got along with everyone. I wonder how they do that. I thought to myself that maybe he was focused on his career like I had been when I married. And I don't know, I was contemplating taking to him just to let him know what he was probably missing, but putting career at the forefront, while relegating owning a family to the background. But then, there was side talks on how he could not sustain a job or a relationship for long at all in his life. All the same, I invited Kyle over to my house to come spend the weekend with us whenever we had a chance. Update number 4. It's been 3 years since the burial ceremony of my mother-in-law, and Kyle has since moved in with us. It probably seems too quick to let my in-law move in with me, right? But I'm certain it was the best thing to do at the time. Kyle had accepted my invitation to come spend the weekend with us, and we had such a wonderful time together. My 9-year-old son really got along with Kyle and was greatly against Kyle leaving when the weekend was over. We had to plead with him to extend his stay until the extension turned to years. Kyle had studied pharmacy and was actually a licensed pharmacist, but he was not practicing. I had a series of discussions with him, and he opened up to me that the only reason why he had failed practicing his profession was because he had no passion for it. He claimed that his parents had forced him to do it, and I did pity him. He did note that he'd always wanted to be a full-time businessman if his parents had let him have his way, as regards to his love life, and while a man at his age was yet to settle down, he said that he was yet to find an available woman whose ideologies aligned with his, and was willing to spend the rest of his life with. My wife and I decided that we were going to help him in two different ways. Firstly, we would help set up a business here in the city for him. He wanted to deal in the sale of cars, and that was not really going to be an issue as my wife and I could get him a startup capital. While I would discuss with my friends who were in the same line of business to have him connected. Secondly, once his business was finally on its feet, I was going to do to him what my junior brother had done to me years back while in college, setting him up with ladies so that he could at least settle down. The suggestion about setting Kyle up with ladies did not go down well with my wife. She claimed that what Kyle needed most was his own business and focusing on building it before talking about women, who would probably be a distraction to him at least. Now, I get the fact that women, or the lifestyle of promiscuity, can be real distraction. But in a situation such as this, I believe Kyle needs to be around women more often. Besides, the fact that the goal was for him to find a lady he was willing to get married to. He could equally profit from mere friendships and these ladies who could help connect him to their friends too. All the same, it had to be first things first. Business before pleasure. And so I got in contact with one of my colleagues who was in the same line of work, which Kyle wanted to delve into, and we arranged a meeting. I would be traveling outside the city for 3 days as a result of it, and I'm confident, though, that my wife and son are both in safe hands. Kyle's hands. What's up, guys? Mr. Reddito here. Update number 5 is going to knock your socks off. Just know this update was 3 months after the previous one, and let me tell you right now, things are about to hit the fan. If you're enjoying this story so far, the best way to support me is very simple. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel. We do daily videos here on Mr. Reddito, and you can find all the channel links in the description below. Here is update number 5, and oh boy, you better buckle your seatbelt. It's been 3 months since I last posted, and I'm currently headed home. I just finished a session with my therapist, and he's talking me through a healing process as I'm currently battling depression. I'm a lot more better and stronger than I was, otherwise I would not be posting. As a matter of fact, I feel a certain kind of relief writing about this. You might be wondering how I ended up at a therapy session for depression since I last posted about my journey to the city to meet with my car dealer friend. Well, this update's not really going to be a sweet one, so brace up. So, I'd embarked on the 3-day trip just like I said I would, and it was a success. My colleagues was willing to give Kyle that necessary information and connections which was required to succeed in this line of business. I traveled back home to meet everyone and everything, the same except for my wife. She was not so excited to see me. I know my wife very well like the back of my hand, and I could tell that something was definitely wrong. I began observing changes in her whole character and demeanor whenever I was around her. It was almost as if she did not want me around. It was like I irritated her or something. I tried talking to her friend to find out what the problem was, but she said there was no problem. I knew that was a lie because it's even affected our sex life. We no longer have fun the way we did before, and it was not my fault. It was at that point that my suspicion about her cheating on me rose to the peak. I could not follow her around, so I did what any rich man would do. I hired a private investigator to look into my wife and get back to me. Even though I've hired a PI and was expecting a feedback, I was scared at the thought of him bringing me a report that my wife had begun cheating on me. The private investigator got back to me, and well, his answer was negative. He had meticulously followed my wife about, and he could not find anything to suggest that she was cheating. Although his revelation doused my fear, I was still bothered because something was just off. It made no sense that my wife was gradually drifting far from me. Out of frustration, I opened up to Kyle about what was going on, and he told me that his cousin would never cheat on me. He said that it was possible she was going through a lot of stress then and just needed a little bit of space. Kyle suggested that I just be patient with her because, according to him, a man can never fully understand a woman. Well, I welcomed his opinion, though I didn't really fully buy into it. I mean, I'd been married to Emma for 12 years, and in all those years, she's been working and passing through stress without overreacting the way she's doing now. There was nothing else that I could do, other than give her space and hope that she comes around. After my discussion with Kyle, Emma seemed to return to herself, or I could even see an improved version of who I initially have known. She apologized for acting so strange and distant all this while, and even asked that we took a 1-month leave from work to go spend some time alone together. Our son could stay with Kyle, and I felt Kyle may have spoken with her, so I tried thanking him. But he insisted that he had nothing to do with it. Well, it didn't really matter much to me or who did it because my wife turned towards me again. All that matters was she was going to give me more attention. We obtained that 1-month leave and went on our vacation, and I can say that it was the best time I've ever had since the past 3 years. It was like we were reliving our honeymoon afresh. After a month was up, we came back home and I felt alive. I resumed work with vigor in life, thanks to the treat my wife Emma had given me. Things went well for a while, but after a couple of weeks, Emma started giving me attitude again. This time around, I decided to keep quiet about it and just monitor her myself. Forget the PI. We were together at the office one time when she suddenly developed a, quote, headache and asked me to go home. I wanted to drive her home myself, but she insisted that she could manage the drive. She had driven out of the office when I discovered that she left her phone behind. Out of curiosity, of course, I began going through her phone. Well, I was shocked. I was shocked at the discovery which I made. I went through her Facebook account as I had the password, and I saw her chats with her cousin Kyle. Oh boy, they were sexual. They were even exchanging nude pictures, and I was wounded. It took me a while to get a grip over myself, and after a few minutes, I gathered enough strength to rage and go home and confront the both of them. I had my driver drive me home while I thought hard on what to do. I rushed into the house and I found Kyle right on top of my wife, and they were doing it. I collapsed at the spot. My driver and 2 culprits rushed me to the hospital where I was placed on an intensive care unit. Emma was compelled to inform of my family about an admission to the hospital, and they all rallied around me as I remained unconscious. It took 3 days before I could finally start recognizing faces and recollecting what happened. I opened my eyes to find my parents, my brother, and my wife, and my son all around me. My wife claimed that I suddenly slumped, and I just kept quiet. She was trying to cover the whole thing up, and I played along. I was not willing to disclose her dirty little secret to them. At least, not yet. I was discharged from the hospital after 2 weeks, and my wife and son went home with me. Her cousin Kyle had since run away while I was in the hospital. Now, my wife Emma had been pleading with me all along. She knew that if what I said had been discovered, both her and her family could be dragged into the mud. So, I kept it a secret. Yeah, I did. But I asked her to leave the house till I thought about what I was going to do. What would you do if you were me? Update number 6 a few days later. Well, it's been a few days since my last post, and I'm still in my recovery process, though I'm strong enough to decide what actions I'll take. My wife had been pleading with me all day long to cover up her shame. She'd come clean to confess that she and her cousin Kyle had crushed on each other right from when they were kids. It was one of the reasons why it was difficult for the both of them to get married early on in life, as they hadn't gotten over each other. Their passion for each other was ignited when they bumped into each other at Emma's mother's funeral. The whole picture became crystal clear. I was so naive that I could not see the signs right in front of me, red flag after red flag. Emma had suggested we invite Kyle to live with us. She suggested that we compelled him to live with us and even set him up for a business. No wonder she became offended when I wanted to set Kyle up with women. It was probably her jealousy speaking. The more I think about it, the more deeper the pain goes. She was cheating on me with her own cousin for the past 3 years, and it was the very reason she would not often have fun with me or even be close. She only acted sweet and demanded that we go on vacations after her cousin Kyle told her that I was suspecting that she was in fact cheating. Her overloving acts were just a ploy to kill my suspicion. I informed my wife last week that I was not going to disclose her secret, but I had my own terms. We were going to get divorced, and I would have custody of our 12-year-old son. She would not be paid a dime, and she was never to show up in my son's life anymore. Well, my wife was mad with that request, I'll tell you that. She called me wicked. I'm not a woman beater, otherwise she would have really gotten it from me. She had absolutely no right to interfere that I was being unfair. I was the victim, not her. She'd been trying to appeal to me to reconsider. She was willing to divorce me without any settlement, but she was not willing to be kicked out of her own son's life. She actually tried using our son to emotionally blackmail me with the claim that a mother had an important role in playing of a life of a child. Well, I do agree that a mother has a role to play, but not a cheating, dirty mother. A cheating mother was going to be a terrible influence to her child. Alright guys, Mr. Edito here. So we're down to the final update. This is the last one of the entire saga, and it seems this one happened 6 months later. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this so far. Here's your final update. It's been 6 months since I last updated. I'm currently a divorcee with a son, while my wife Emma's currently wasting away in jail. For attempted assassination. Yeah, you heard that right. While you're wondering how she got there, just have it at heart that she brought it on herself. After I remained adamant, she stuck to my divorce terms, otherwise the truth would be out. She gave in. When I announced to my parents that I was getting a divorce, they were all shocked and saddened by the news. As expected, they began inquiring to know the reason behind our decision to divorce, and I simply told them about an irreconcilable difference. I was not ready to tell them the whole truth just yet, oh no. And that's because I had a plan up my sleeves. After my wife signed those divorce papers, I allowed some weeks to pass before kicking my plan into motion. I'd always had my wife's passwords to her social media handles, and besides, the fact that I caught her red-handed sleeping with her cousin Kyle, she never knew that I was aware of her sexting, which she had engaged with them online. Within a few weeks after our divorce, I released those chats and images online. Yeah, I put them to the public to see. A few minutes after I did it, the news traveled around the whole city that the daughter of one of the most powerful families around was involved in a scandal. My ex-wife got to know about it when her family summoned her and broke the news to her. She was absolutely devastated and almost had a heart attack, they say. And I felt good when I learned that the family were greatly disappointed in her, at least the way they would actually know that she broke our marriage, not me. Well, while the whole city was still trending with the news, I met with my family and told them the actual reason why Emma and I divorced was that we were seeing all over the news. They really sympathized with me, and I was not really done dealing with my ex-wife Emma. I went on air. I did a documentary about how devastated and traumatized I've been when I caught my ex-wife cheating with her very own cousin on our own matrimonial bed. An act that caused me to spend most of my days battling depression. A battle which was yet to be fully won. I lied that even though I've never posted those images, I was somewhat relieved to know that it was there for everyone to see what I've been passing through for the past 3 years. Now, don't get me wrong. I was not playing the victim. I was actually the victim. The documentary, which I gathered, and get me some sympathy from the general masses, who rained abuses on my ex-wife and her cousin, and even her family. The folks even trolled my wife and her family online. Her career was basically over because no client would ever entrust their personal issues to a legal practitioner who could not handle her own private life well. My ex-wife's family did not spare her. They actually disassociated themselves from her and Kyle, and they in turn did their own brief video where they publicly condemned the actions of their daughter, and equally apologized to me for what their daughter had done. I guess that was more like a damage control move just to save their face. So now my ex-wife has lost her husband, son, family, and career, but that wasn't all. She was still going to lose her freedom. My wife knew that besides me, no other person had access to her social media handles. And she got mad because I breached our agreement to keep the whole thing secret while tricking her into signing off her rights to see her own son for life. She began sending me death threats, and I could sometimes feel someone trailing me. I knew that my life was probably actually really endangered, and so I reported to the cops, who arrested my wife one night when she was found stalking me at my residence. A search was carried out on her, and they found a gun, a knife. A raid was carried out on her residence, and my pictures were found littered all over her walls with X's inscripted down each of my face. It was proof that she was the one coming after me for my life. She was held in jail for 3 weeks while I prepared myself to charge her to court with everything that I have. 3 weeks was up, and I pushed on with the charges. It was a case of attempted assassination, and there was enough evidence to nail her for 15 solid years. However, besides the whole assassination attempt thing, I equally slammed her with a lawsuit of infidelity, just so that the sentence could be extended. Her only defense for attacking me was that she was mentally unstable. Well, she was not just mentally unstable, she was mad to think that I was going to keep her secret with me. She was mad to think that after making an attempt on my actual life, I would not come down on her with the full weight of the law. Everyone found her excuse rather ridiculous, including the judge. He sentenced her to the full 20 years in prison. She could go on sleeping with the whole inmates for all I care. By the time I should see her again, she would be out of jail. Her son would be 34, and I'd probably be a grandfather, as he would have gotten married with kids of his own. I'd wanted to find another woman to call my own so I could get my mind off my ex-wife, but my therapist warned me against it right now. He noted that if I had not healed properly, it could affect my future relationship that I could get into with the woman, as I would have issues trusting them again. I understand his point of view because the only reason I wanted a woman was for my desires anyways, not because I wanted to be in a committed relationship. How do I know what the next lady who I might want to marry will not be sleeping with her father, mother, brother, or granddad? I know I sound ridiculous, but my ex-wife Emma had taught me a lesson that anything's possible. So I'm currently a single dad who's doing well with his son while my wife is being rotting away in jail. My life's not yet stable, as I've not totally healed from depression, but I'm doing really well, compared to where I was in the past. My son misses his mother, and I would have to tell him someday, sooner than expected, that his mother was a cheating wife who preferred her blood-related cousin over her own husband. I know I would have to tell my son sooner than I think, so he could be better prepared to face the bullies who might want to use his mother's story that's out there in the public to make fun of him. All the same, I'm sure that we're both going to turn out just fine. Alright guys, so I'll be honest with you, I was noticing a ton of red flags in this story. It just seemed like the cousin was trying to be way too close with OP's ex-wife, and it turned out, well, the unthinkable. They were cheating, yeah, with her blood relative. Super weird and crazy. Guys, let me know how you would handle this situation if you were OP. I'm just glad at the end of the story, OP seems to be building a good relationship with his child. He is worried that the child's going to be bullied because of what his mother did. But anyways, let me know your thoughts about this, guys. Drop your thoughts down below and consider subscribing. It's the best way to support me, and I appreciate it so much. I'll be here tomorrow with another fresh story, so I hope to see you then. Have a wonderful day.